Ladies and gentlemen, a formal welcome to Daily Power Parsha. Matt, I always love looking at the beautiful blue sky behind you because it's like, it feels more, I don't know, beautiful than these walls.
Yeah.
I mean, the walls are beautiful, but it's not huh?
Oh yeah, it is. There's not a cloud anywhere out here right now.
It's gorgeous. The green and the blue, stunning.
Yeah,
Put up a wailing wall, Rabbi. You should put up one of your wailing walls.
I know, right? We should put it back there. Exactly. All right, so let's jump in. Today, we are going to continue our double Torah portions, which are Tazria-Metzora, and my hope is that you can see that. Does it show up Torah reading for Tazria-Metzora? Do you guys see that? Yeah, okay, good. All right, we're up to the second reading. In the first reading, we introduced the notion of ritual purity and impurity and the idea of tzarat, this kind of miraculous, although that's usually a positive thing, but kind of supernatural skin ailment that represents a spiritual deficiency. It's not about not moisturizing enough. It's about a spiritual deficiency. And the call to action is one of spiritual correction, tikkun. So let's continue inside Tazria-Metzora, Leviticus chapter 13, verse number 24. Let's do it together. This is the second reading. If a person's flesh has a fire burn on its skin, okay, and on the healed area of the burn, there is a reddish white or white baheret. So the Kohen shall look at it, as always, and behold, again, this means if the hair has turned white in the baheret, it's giving a scenario. It says, behold, the hair has turned white. Now, it means if that's the case, that the hair has turned white inside this baheret, and its appearance is, once again, deeper than the skin. It is tzarat, which has spread in the burn. So there's an area of burned skin, and then tzarat inside of that area. So the Kohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is a lesion of tzarat. But, verse 26, if the Kohen looks at it and behold, there is no white hair in the baheret, and it is not lower, it doesn't appear deeper than the skin, and so there's no white hairs, it doesn't appear to be lower or deeper than the skin, and it is dim, in other words, it's a bit faded, then, with this scenario, the Kohen shall quarantine him for 7 days. This is not a declaration of tzarat. This is we're not sure yet, so hang tight while we diagnose. And then the Kohen, verse 27, shall look at it on the 7th day. If it has spread on the skin, well, then the Kohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is a lesion of tzarat. So if it's grown within those 7 days, that's it. Tzarat. But, verse 28, if the baheret remains in its place, in other words, there was a burn, and then there was the baheret, this skin discoloration inside the burn, but it remains where it is, not increasing, as the Torah says, not increasing on the skin, and it is dim, in other words, it's still fairly faded. It is, the Torah says, a se'et, or a se'et of the burn, and the Kohen shall pronounce him clean because it is the scar tissue of the burn. So what's amazing here is the Torah is giving us a scenario where the skin has had trauma to it. And the Torah says if there's a burn, so then you pay attention to what's happening inside the burn. If it goes one way, then that's a sign of tzarat. If it goes a different way, it's just the scar tissue of the burn. So here we have the Torah giving an example of where it would require the Kohen not to just notice an anomaly on the skin, because that could be due to the burn. It's a very specific anomaly that indicates tzarat. And even in a burn, you might say, well, it's just a burn. Like, stop it. It's just a burn. It's going to heal. No, there could be tzarat in the burn, depending on what it looks like. Let's continue verse 29. If a man or a woman has a lesion on the head or on the beard area, so again, head, i.e., by the hair or in the beard area. So the Kohen shall look at the lesion. Again, always the Kohen ascertaining, because the Kohen is about love and about healing and also about kindness. So the Kohen shall look at hey, Mark, good to see you. Welcome back. Good to see you, Mark. So the Kohen assesses the lesion, and behold, in this scenario, its appearance is deeper than the skin, and in it is a thin golden yellow hair. This is not the white hair that we've been speaking of before. Now it's a golden yellow hair. Then in this case, the Kohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is a netek, which is tzarat of the head or the beard. Or it could just be some white hairs. No, I'm kidding, right? If there's a skin issue, it's not just, hair changing colors or the beard changing colors, right? But it's actually a skin lesion in that area. And inside is a thin golden yellow hair, then that is tzarat. But, verse 31, when the Kohen looks at the netek lesion and behold, its appearance is not deeper than the skin, and there is no black hair in it, well, then the Kohen, so number one, it's not deeper than the skin, but number two, there is not black hair in it, then the Kohen shall quarantine the person with this netek lesion for 7 days, which requires a follow-up appointment with the Kohen. And verse 32 is the follow-up. And the Kohen shall look at the lesion on the 7th day after quarantine. And behold, the netek, if the netek has not spread and no golden yellow hair was in it, and the appearance of the netek is not deeper than the skin, so what do? He shall shave himself. In other words, let's say it's on the head. So you cut off all the hair around that area. But adjacent to the netek, he shall not shave. You see what's going on here? And the Kohen shall quarantine the person with the netek again for another 7 days. But now we have an objective way to know if it's spread or not. Are you with me? Because you shave the area around that netek, and then at the end of the next 7 days, you ascertain. Then the Kohen shall look at the netek on the 7th day. And behold, the netek did not spread on the skin, and its appearance is not deeper than the skin. So if that's the case, the Kohen shall pronounce him clean. And he shall immerse his garments and become clean. But, verse 35, if the netek spreads on the skin, so now after 7 days, the second 7-day period, you see that this netek is actually outside of the area that was left unshaved, then if it spreads after he's been declared clean, then the Kohen shall look at it, and behold, the netek has spread on the skin. So then the Kohen need not examine for golden yellow hair. It is unclean. As long as it spreads, or the moment it spreads, it is considered to be tameh, impure. It is considered to be a form of tzarat. But if the appearance of the netek has remained the same, or if black hair has grown in it, then the netek has healed, he is clean, so the Kohen shall pronounce him clean. All right, that is the end of this discussion about tzarat in the hair on the head or in the hair of the beard area. All right, Mark, did you want to jump in? No. Okay.
Nope.
Got it. No, I wasn't sure. I thought I heard something. Okay, now what's interesting is, I think what's interesting is the process by which it's ascertained whether or not it's spread, right? You shave, it's like a mohawk, right? You shave all the hair and you leave the area of hair where that growth is, where that, skin netek is. What is a netek? It's a skin discoloration, right? So now you leave that area with the hair. Now you can know if the hair is changing colors, if it's black or golden yellow. And you also know if the actual lesion, that's the word lesion, is spreading or if it's remaining the same or it's shrinking. Okay. Next, if a man or a woman has spots on the skin of their flesh, white spots, verse 39, the Kohen shall look, and behold, there are dim white spots on the skin of their flesh. It is called a bohak, pigmentation which is spread on the skin. He or she is clean. The Torah uses all sorts of language, netek, bohak. Before we had baheret. Where was baheret? Baheret, right? Of course, we have tzarat. Lots of different terms, and it refers to various permutations of the skin, discoloration, or the skin, a lesion on the skin, a spot on the skin, etc. Remember, once again, we do not consult a dermatologist in ancient times. First thing is you go to the Kohen, find out if this is a spiritual issue. If not, then we go to the creams. But one thing is for sure, it's not meant to be, just ignored or brushed under the rug. Okay. That was reading number 2. Now we're going to do reading number 3, which is actually the appropriate reading for today, because today is the 3rd day of the week, Sunday, Monday, and today is Tuesday. Here we go. If a man, chapter 13, if a man loses the hair on the back of his head, he is bald. He is clean. Okay? So the Torah is declaring the person bald, right? So the hair is lost at the back of the head. So no need to be concerned, right? No need to be concerned yet. That in and of itself is not a sign of tzarat. Verse 41, for that matter, if he loses hair on the side toward his face, he's bald at the front, he is clean. So whether the hair falls out in the back of the head or the front of the head, either way, that itself is not a sign of tzarat. However, verse 32, if there is a reddish white lesion on the back or front bald area, then it is a spreading tzarat in his back or front bald area. In other words, if it's just the hair coming out, that's not a spiritual sign. But if the hair falls out and then a reddish white lesion appears, then we're dealing with something else. Now we got another issue to deal with. It is a form of tzarat. And by the way, the Hebrew here is karachat and gabachat. Oh, I'm sorry, no, but karachat is the back bald area, gabachat is the front area. Nega lavan adamdon. Nega means a lesion, that is lavan, that is white, and adamdon, and red, a white, reddish, or reddish white. Okay, fine. That's it. So again, bald spots, not a sign, but reddish white lesion spreading. Yeah, that could be tzarat. So verse 33, the Kohen shall look at it. Once again, it cannot be determined sans a Kohen. I'm going to tell you the extent that a Kohen is needed in a moment. And behold, there is a reddish white se'et lesion on the back or front bald area, like the appearance of tzarat on the skin of the flesh. In other words, like tzarat could appear on the skin of the arms, it could appear in the bald spot on the head. In this case, so what do? Well, verse 44, he is a man afflicted with tzarat. That's a sign of tzarat, straight up. He is unclean. The Kohen shall surely pronounce him unclean. His lesion is on his head. So maybe typically it appears on the other parts of the body, but sometimes it could appear on the head in a bald spot area. And the person with tzarat in whom there is a lesion, hold on. Now we get to the general law of what happens in all of these scenarios. If a person is diagnosed, so to speak, with tzarat, so we haven't yet discussed that. We've been discussing what it looks like, what the Kohen looks for, the quarantine period, to ascertain whether it's growing or shrinking or turning colors or sprouting different colors hair. bottom line, if in whatever of these multiple ways a person does end up being called with Sarat, what do? Verse 45 gives our answer. Finally, we understand the protocol. And the person with Sarat, in whom there is the lesion, what do? His garment shall be torn. It's kind of like a sign of mourning. His head shall be unshorn. Grow the hair. It's also a sign of mourning. Just want to be very clear here. Somebody loses a loved one, there is a custom to tear one's garments and to not cut one's hair. Right? Cutting one's hair is considered to be an act of, what's the word I'm looking for? Cutting one's hair is an act of, help me out. Personal, not manicuring, but like
Hygiene.
upkeep, right? Hygiene, grooming, maybe grooming is what I'm looking for. So it's about grooming oneself. When one is in a state of sadness, then we're not meant to be grooming and preening and checking the mirrors. It's not meant to be a time of aesthetic. It's meant to be a time of mourning. In a small way is the person with Sarat. He tears his garments, his hair is unshorn, he shall cover himself down to his mustache and call out, unclean, unclean. It's not unclean, it's really impure, impure. Tameh, tameh. All the days, so for how long? All the days the lesion is upon him, he shall remain unclean. He is unclean, he shall dwell isolated. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. I mentioned this yesterday. Somebody with Sarat, garments are torn, the head is unshorn, he's covered down to the mustache, which means, I guess, some sort of like head covering, kind of like wearing like a hood type thing. I believe that's what it means. And he calls out, unclean, unclean, and he remains in isolation outside the camp until the lesion is gone.
Ari, let me ask you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does Tzara occur because of Lashon Hara or not?
Yeah, that's one of the causes for Sarat. In fact, our commentaries, the sages, give multiple reasons or multiple scenarios in which Sarat would happen. One of them, and by far the most prevalently talked about, the most discussed, is the one due to Lashon Hara, because that's the example that we have in Torah. Miriam is gossiping about her brother Moses to her other brother Aaron, and before you know it, she develops Sarat. And Moses says something not nice about the Jewish people. They're not going to believe me. What's the point, right? When God is trying to appoint him for the task, the next thing you know, his hand has Sarat on it. So every time we find, not every time, but several times that we find people disparaging other people, Sarat occurs, which is the biggest clue in scripture that Sarat is born of, one of the things at least, is born of Lashon Hara. What did I want to show you? Oh, this. He shall cover himself down to his mustache like a mourner. Listen, the way I understand it is, if it says down, cover himself down to his mustache, means from the head down to the mustache, kind of wearing something that goes over the head, covers the eyes almost, so that one is downcast and just staring down at the ground. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know if it makes sense, but I mean, is that, I guess, whatever. But that seems to be the protocol over here. Let's continue. What happens with the garment? Verse 47. And as for the garment that has the lesion of Sarat upon it, now, new information, right? Drum roll. We now have Sarat, a discussion from verse 47, where Sarat can appear not just on people's bodies, but on their clothing, which is mind-boggling, which is another sign that this is not a physical issue, it's a spiritual issue. Because if it's physical, I mean, really? I've never heard of anybody putting, hand cream on a shirt. It's not a thing. So, right, because shirts don't develop Skin lesions. It's not a thing. So here we go. What about the garment that has the lesion of tzara'at upon it? Whether it's a woolen garment or a linen garment, or even on threads prepared for the warp or the woof of linen or of wool. That means it's the threads that are on the spool. Or tzara'at could appear on leather or anything made from a leather. Shoes, a belt, a jacket, if you dare, right? So what happens if tzara'at appears on any of these types of garments, whether it's a finished garment, an unfinished, wool threads or linen threads, or anything made of leather? So here we go. If the lesion, verse 49, if the lesion on the garment, the leather, the warp or woof threads, or on any leather article, not just the garment, but anything made of leather, if it's deep green or deep red, yeah. If one day you have your white shirt in your closet, develops a deep green or deep red lesion on it, okay? Number one, I would check your circulation in your closet. Number one. Number two, right? All joking aside. Number two, in biblical times at least, that would be a sign of a lesion of tzara'at, and it shall be shown to the Kohen. Remind me to talk about the Kohen again at the end. The Kohen shall look at the lesion and he shall quarantine the article. Look at that. Who gets quarantined? The garment. He shall quarantine the article with the lesion for 7 days. It's unbelievable. Mr. Leather Jacket, you need to come with me. Isolation room, right? So you quarantine the item, the article of clothing or otherwise, for 7 days. And verse 51, he shall look at the lesion again on the 7th day. If the lesion has spread on the garment or on the warp or woof threads or on the leather or on any article made from leather. So any of these items, if it's spread after those 7 days, then the lesion is a malignant tzara'at. It is unclean. In the Hebrew, it's tzara'at mam'eret. Mam'eret means malignant. It's an active tzara'at, and the garment is unclean. So what do you do in this case? Do you send it out of the camp? What happens with the garment that definitely has tzara'at because it's growing over that 7-day period? Here we go, verse 52. You shall burn the garment. You burn the garment, or the warp or woof threads of wool or of linen or any leather article which is a lesion upon it. Whatever fabric material we're talking about that has this lesion of tzara'at, that's been confirmed by the Kohen because it was put in isolation and quarantine, and then it's been spreading. Maybe you chalk outline it. Like when you take something to the tailor or the dry cleaner, they sometimes put like a little marking on the article of clothing. So the Kohen might mark it, the original contours of the lesion. So come back in 7 days. Is it bigger? Is it smaller? If it's bigger, then you burn the garment. Done. 4 is the malignant tzara'at. It shall be burned in fire. That is its cure, destruction. But if the Kohen looks at the end of that 7-day quarantine period, right? So we know it has the red or the green. We know it's got the lesion. We know it looks like tzara'at, but we've quarantined it for 7 days. If at the end of that time period, the lesion has not spread on the garment, the warp or woof threads, or any leather article, if it has not spread, then the Kohen shall order the following, and they shall wash what the lesion is upon, and he shall quarantine it again for 7 days. Listen to this. You put it in the washing machine. And they didn't have washing machines then, but you would wash it to try to get out the lesion stain. And then you quarantine it again for 7 days. And then you would do another assessment. If after, it's now 14 days after the original seeing of this lesion, there's a first period of 7 days, and then it didn't grow, it didn't spread, so they washed it and quarantined it again for 7 days. If after these 14 days and a good wash, it's not spreading, then we'll see there's one law. If it is spreading, then there's a different law. And this takes us into tomorrow's reading. We have a bit of a cliffhanger. Okay, so we're going to leave it with the cliffhanger and then start with the purification process, which will take us into our second Torah portion, Metzora. So Tazria will end tomorrow with a continuation of the garment Tzarat protocol. And then we're going to start the second half of the Torah portions, Metzora, and talk about the actual process that the person does who's finished the whole cycle of quarantine and leaving the camp until it's done. What happens then? There's a whole protocol here, which we will discuss, which is laden with meaning. I'm going to share with you one insight that I promised a few times already that I was going to share with you today. The Torah again and again says that if you're not sure, not even if you're not sure, if it looks like it might be Tzarat, you got to take it to the Kohen. There's an incredible idea that's brought down in Jewish law that says that if you're living in a community, this is like in ancient times, and there's only one Kohen, and the Kohen is a kid, you're going to ask me, how is this scenario possible? Who knows? Let's say the father passed away tragically. Who knows? You have an 8-year-old boy who's the only Kohen in town. Let's just say. You want to know, is it Tzarat or not? So you bring it to the Kohen, right? This 8-year-old boy that has no clue what to look for. So what do? Here's what Jewish law says. You bring in an expert who's a non-Kohen, because you don't have a Kohen right now who's an expert. You bring in anyone else who's an expert in the visual, in diagnosing it. And you bring the Kohen, and the expert looks at it, whispers the pronouncement to the Kohen, either thumbs up or thumbs down, either pure or impure. And then the Kohen, kid in this case, would actually articulate and proclaim it to the person. The Rebbe speaks about this. The Rebbe says, how bizarre. If the Kohen doesn't know, so then why are we bothering? What are we doing? What is the game? The kid has no clue. What are you driving him crazy for? If the pronouncement anyway is originating with the Chacham, with the expert, so just have the expert do it. We don't have a Kohen. We don't have a Kohen. Rebbe explains, we do have a Kohen. And this pronouncement has to be done from a place of love. It has to encourage the person to love and not gossip. It has to only be distancing after it comes from a place of love. Therefore, the Kohen must be involved, even if the Kohen doesn't know. In other words, this message of you've got Tzarat, that's my you've got mail version, right? You've got Tzarat has to be packaged in the aura, the ambiance, the language, the spirit of a Kohen, no matter how young and inexperienced that Kohen might be. So it's not a technical analysis. Oh, according to my microscope, this is Tzarat. There's a spiritual component, and a Kohen, however young, and however as of yet unlearned, is the one to grant that spiritual energy. And I'm going to use a word that I don't mean literally, like bless the process almost, or grant it a certain spiritual energy that is love and kindness and positivity in this case. All right, I hope that made sense. Again, similar to what we said yesterday, but I added the wrinkle of the application in Jewish law where you would literally have two people there, an expert and the little Kohen kid, and they would do it in tandem. It's got to be with the Kohen.
Rabbi?
Yeah, Donna, go ahead.
So let's say that the person is cleared up of his malady and he commits not to gossip anymore. Is there any residual ongoing negative impact? So like, in the United States, if someone, goes to jail for a felony and then is released, he's always a former felon.
Excellent question. We had a class in crime and consequence. Our JLI course from a year and a half, 2 years ago, that actually dealt specifically with this issue from a Jewish perspective, and how it's not a Jewish perspective, even when it comes to criminal case, to hold something against someone And in other words, if they really did tshuva, if they really changed their ways, then one is prohibited from bringing it up, holding it against them. It's one of the greatest crimes. It's one of the worst things that a person could do to someone else is to hold their past against them, assuming that they moved away from their past.
So
Again,
clean slate.
100%. And this would also apply. I started with your example first, and now let's go back to tzara, which is your question. The same thing would be with tzarat. The moment a person goes through the process and heals, clean slate. And really, this is, I would say this is one of the great ideas of Judaism and Torah. We had a course, Judaism's Gifts to the World. I would say this is number 7. We had 6 different gifts that we spoke about in that course. I would actually elevate this on equal status to those other 6. The belief that people can start again and should be given that opportunity and the encouragement and the platform to clean their slate, that's a fundamental Jewish belief. And you know where that comes from? Golden calf. That comes from Moses advocating, not only advocating, demanding from God, wipe the slate clean or I'm out. Either wipe them clean or wipe my name clean from your Torah. But something you're going to erase. You're going to delete something. Either delete their record, expunge their record from the system, or take me out, delete me from your books. That's Moses' ultimatum, and it stems from this idea that everyone needs to be given a second chance. And it's not just a second chance, is too cliche. There's a belief that people can radically change and start again. It's a fundamental Jewish belief. And it runs through Torah, it runs through the notion of tshuva. That's literally what tshuva is. Repentance. What does that mean? Tshuva means return. It's getting back to the pristine self. My example is always the Etch-a-Sketch. I always go back to that example. It's like you've done all sorts of things. You're back. Tshuva, you reset. Tshuva is the reset button. Reset means factory reset. Not like, well, we still have files in the hard drive. No, it means reset. Reset. To borrow a phrase from halacha, like a newborn child. That is the idea, like a newborn child. I once heard a great story. This fellow went to his rabbi and said, Rabbi, I've changed my ways. I've become a better person, done a lot of work inside. But I still find the same temptations, desires knocking on the door. They're still after me. What do I do? He said, I'll tell you a story. There was once a fellow, a Jew named Moshe, who owned a tavern. He owned a tavern. In Russia, people would travel and they would need a place to stay, and there was a bar. So it was like an inn, bed and breakfast, whatever. But his bar would get so busy at night. Business was booming, but people would get rowdy and they would drink a lot and they would get vulgar and they would get violent and there would be fights and they would break things. Yeah. Imagine a good bar fight scene, right? Picture that. Imagine that happens day in, day out, or week in, week out. And meanwhile, it's your place and you got to clean up the mess. So he decides one day, that's it. No more bar, no more tavern. I'm opening up something else. A different shop or a different vocation. Right? So let's give an example. A stationery store. I don't know if they had that back then, but I'm just going to give you the most benign example I can think of is a stationery store, right? Some nice paper and pens and other tchotchkes like that for writing and scrapbooking. Yeah, stationery store. Good. So what happens? The next night, someone knocks on the door. I'm here for a drink. Sorry, you got the wrong address. The next person, here for a drink. Sorry, you got the wrong address. This was the parable. The rabbi said to to this fellow who had done the transformation, but there were still things knocking on the door. Just tell those inner thoughts, you got the wrong address. The business has changed, you got the wrong address. So are we going to guarantee that that things won't come knocking on the door, even with transformation and rehabilitation? No. There's no guarantee that things won't knock on the door. But we have the choice to wipe the slate clean and to tell our inner thoughts and our inner yearnings, the inner stirrings, sorry, you got the wrong address. You might want to look down the block. Yeah, you might want to find someone else because you don't got no customer here or no business here to look for. But Judaism, back to your question, Donna, and I love your question, Judaism fiercely believes in not just second chances, but in the idea of rebirth and renewal and clean slates. All right, so with that, we'll close it out for today. A few things I want to mention. Number one, tomorrow, I'm assuming is good weather. Yes? Is that confirmed? Yeah?
No, it shows rain.
In the nighttime. In the nighttime, it says.
Okay.
We'll monitor it. You know what? Let's monitor it. If it's not going to rain, and I don't know that I need to, hold on, let me see. So look, my intention would be to do it in person. Oh, I do see rain, but
I've got no rain at 5 o'clock.
no rain until, 5, 6 o'clock. You are correct. So 12 o'clock is actually 75 degrees, scattered clouds, which means hopefully it won't be beating down. I put in the request for the canopies. It's out of my hands. We'll see if we get them up. But let's plan on being in person. And you can order from Spicy. We'll pick it up. And we'll, please God, have a beautiful session together. You can join online also, and we'll be live streaming as well. Dual option. But we will, please God, definitely be in person. Again, if something changed and in the morning, it looks like it's going to be a storm, then let's all be in touch. You can text me and whatever, and we'll figure it out. But if it stays like this, we're going to be on. Let me think what else there is. So that's tomorrow. Tomorrow night is Torah studies. Thursday is normal with Tanya as well. Friday night, huge party. Shabbat under the stars. Join us if you're not yet signed up for it. Join us. You are going to love it. Outdoors, gorgeous, sparkling lights, sparkling stars, gorgeous views of Midtown Manhattan, the Beltline, Ponce City Market.
Manhattan.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Midtown Atlanta. Wow, Freudian slip right there. That was great. By the way, if we can put that in, that would be a selling point also. Come to Shabbat under the stars.
I'm from Midtown Manhattan.
There you go, right? So that would be a cool message, right? Come to Shabbat under the stars in Atlanta. We'll give you Midtown Manhattan. That would be an interesting twist. But gorgeous views of Midtown, Ponce City Market, the Beltline, gourmet. We've got a killer menu. Any special menu requests, we are doing special meals as well. So just reach out. I'm actually going to send out an email today. I have an email written, just need to send it out with asking if there are any requests because we can accommodate. What else do we have? Oh, so that's it. So that's happening Friday night. And it's going to be a lot of fun. 7:30 dinner preceded by candle lighting and services at 7. Just to clarify, and I'm going to send out an email about this as well. The plan is that 7 o'clock we'll meet upstairs, and that's at least where I am. That's that way upstairs. This is the Beltline. That's Ponce. So we'll meet upstairs in the lobby for Shabbat candles in the synagogue for services, which are optional, but then we'll be outside at 7:30 for the dinner itself. And that will remain like that for the duration. We're not going to be going back inside. So the service is optional. If you're comfortable coming inside, great. If not, totally understand. And that is that. Okay, good. All right, great to see you. Now, one thing, Sandrine mentioned an idea that in DPP, we should do a quick energy check-in for the energy of the day. Sfirat HaOmer, we count the Omer, 49 days of counting, and each day is associated with a specific energy. So we should talk about that. And I love the idea. And I almost forgot about the idea, mind you, but I did remember. So I'm proud of myself for remembering.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you, Sandrine. And let me quickly take a look. Let's do this. Repeat after me. We'll count the Omer. We're not going to say a blessing, but we'll just count it. And then I'll give a quick insight. Repeat after me. Hayom.
Hayom.
Shisha.
Isha.
Asar.
Asar.
Yom.
Yom.
Tehaim.
Tehim,
Shnei.
Shnei.
Shavuot.
Shavuot.
Ushnei.
Shnei.
Yamim.
Yamin.
LaOmer.
Laomer.
And that translates as today is 16 days, which are 2 weeks and 2 days to the Omer. So we're 16 days in. Today's energy is Gvura within Tiferet. And I didn't do extensive prep for this, but just what comes to mind is, well, we have a blend because there are 7 emotional attributes, but each of the 7 has 7 subdivisions of the other 7 energies. So 7 times 7 is 49, hence the 49 energies. So today's energy is Gevura, which is severity, in Tiferet, which is harmony, which means that sometimes we have to have balance, but within the balance, we have to take a stand and be strong even within our balance. So even with our compassion, there's a way to have a Gevura, a strength, and take a stand even within our compassion. Strong compassion is the energy of the day. So the primary energy this week is compassion, but there are inflections within compassion. All right.
Ari, can I share something?
Sure, absolutely.
This is from Hayom Yom
Oh, good.
for today. It says, out of our bringing during the days of Sifra, at some time in the years 56, 51 through 53, someone said to my father, the Alter Rebbe's Hasidim were always keeping count. My father took a great liking to the saying, and he commented, the idea characterizes man's avoda. The house must be counted. The house must be counted hours, and the days will be counted days. When a day passes, one should know what he has accomplished and what remains yet to be done. In general, one should always see to it that tomorrow should be much better than today.
Love it. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. I want to share with you. One second. And a meditation for today from Rabbi Simon Jacobson. For compassion to be effective and healthy, it needs to be disciplined and focused. It requires discretion both to whom you express compassion and in the measure of the compassion itself. It is recognizing when compassion should be expressed and when it should be withheld or limited. Discipline in compassion is knowing that being truly compassionate sometimes requires withholding compassion, because compassion is not an expression of the bestower's needs, but a response to the recipient's needs. Am I more compassionate with strangers than with close ones? If yes, why? Is the compassion coming from guilt? Does my compassion for others compromise my own needs? Am I helping others at the expense of helping myself? Perhaps the contrary is the case. Does my compassion for my family and close ones overshadow other needs? Is my compassion impulsive and careless? Do I assess the measure of compassion necessary for a given situation? Is it commensurate with the recipient's needs? There's a lot of questions here. Can I possibly be hurting him or her with my compassion? Does my compassion overwhelm others? Is it respectful? Do I give too much or too little? Do others take advantage of my compassionate nature? When I see a needy person, do I impetuously express compassion out of guilt or pity without any discretion? Do I commit the crime of compassion by helping him with something harmful, for example, giving them money to buy a harmful substance? Do I apply myself to determine this person's needs and help them in the best way possible? So, exercise of the day is express your compassion in a focused and constructive manner by addressing someone's specific needs. I like that. To me, that makes sense. That is from Rabbi Jacobson, who many of you heard a few years ago at our IJA dinner at Callenwald. If you recall, we had a dinner with Rabbi Jacobson, and it was a blast. All right, that's it for today. I will let you go. Have a wonderful day. No program tonight from IJA, but we're back on tomorrow. Don't forget, help spread the word. We have we're almost at max capacity for the dinner, but we do have a few more seats. So if you know anybody that might enjoy it, feel free to spread the information, i.e. share the link. Otherwise, we just announced a new program called From Auschwitz to the IDF. This is Label Mengel, who is a decorated IDF veteran who was motivated and inspired to join the Israel Defense Forces due to his father's experience surviving the camps. It's an amazing story spanning 3 generations. There's a Chabad connection, strong Chabad connection. Join us Monday, May 3rd. So it's in a few weeks, Monday, May 3rd for that. Before then, next week, of course, is the new July course. This can happen about the Jewish perspective on Mashiach. Join us. Will the real Messiah please stand up? Join us for that course. All right. I'll see you all. Yom Tov. Have a wonderful day. Everyone be healthy. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you guys.